Hi, my name is Noriega and I'm a student of the Energy Science, Technology and Policy program at Carnegie Mellon University. I address you today as a representative of the Emerging Energy Policies Advisory Team, and I will present the results of the Green Jobs Creation Policy Evaluation that you requested to us a couple weeks ago. I must say in advance that the results were very intriguing and that I encourage you to ask any questions that you find pertinent about this study and its results. In particular, the addressed question was what actions, if any, should the state of Michigan take in order to foster the creation of green jobs? It should be noted that both the federal and state levels may affect significantly the implementation of policies, and therefore, both of them should be taken into account. So, first of all, what is a green job? The EPA, which is Environmental Protection Agency, has defined them as jobs that provide products and services which use renewable energy resources, reduce pollution, conserve energy and natural resources, and reconstitute waste. Well, this definition seems to encompass a wide range of jobs across many industry sectors, which might be expected to make this task easier, but does it actually do it? Throughout this video, I'm going to assess three different policy options. Let's begin with the current approach, frequently referred to as status quo, and see what results is it actually achieving. So, the strategy adopted by the federal government is to create green jobs by facilitating partnerships across workforce developing entities. Now, this means that the government is actually participating directly in the green jobs creation process. So the assessment method that I'm going to use for this evaluation is one known as the 4 E's, which evaluates a policy alternative in terms of its effectiveness, efficiency, equity, and ease of political acceptance. So how effective had the current approach been? There are many estimations about the impact of this policy, some of them as high as 1.2 million jobs, and some others as low as about 3,000 jobs. Some estimations take into account permanent jobs exclusively, which may lead to a lower number of jobs, and some others assume that all the vacancies posted related with green jobs are a generated job indeed, which might, on the other hand, lead to overestimations. Nevertheless, at the national level, the highest estimations yield at best 20% of the 5 million jobs stated by President Obama as a target during its period of governance. Now, to run the program, there have been direct financial helpouts of about $30 billion, this meaning that the cost per job created might be as high as $11 million, which suggests that the current approach has a moderate efficiency. Also, the probability of the results is not being taken into account, which might be a significant risk for the implementation of this policy. With regards to equity, this policy might force the government to directly allocate resources where it believes they will be more efficient to achieve the goal of green jobs creation. Depending on transparency issues and the efficiency of the assigning process, this may have significant impacts regarding equity aspects. In Michigan specifically, the governor Rick Snyder has created a single agency named Agency for Energy intended to centralize the energy decision processes within the state by giving to the new entity the technical capability and the resources to lead the implementation of new technologies and policies. With respect to the ease of political acceptance, evidently different stakeholders will have different views of a certain policy. Because of this, a Prince analysis was conducted. A Prince analysis is a tool that, by assigning scores to the position, understood as how likely is an actor to be in favor of or against an idea, power, and priority, which is how important will be the issue for that particular stakeholder, estimates the likelihood of an alternative to be implemented. The final likelihood of this alternative turns out to be of about 67%, a high percentage. This analysis has given us a wide picture of where we are right now, but is there any other option? What if the government, instead of trying to facilitate partnerships, tries to make a change in the market conditions so that the market itself generates the jobs that will lead to a more sustainable future? This is certainly a feasible path. The Michigan government, through its Agency for Energy and the Department of Treasury, may increase its local tax credits to 50%, in which case the incentive to venture into the green industry would be higher. In terms of effectiveness, it might be argued at least that the market itself would have a faster and a more effective response than a centralized entity, and therefore it should create green jobs in a shorter time span when compared to a single organism willing to intervene more actively in certain process. Consequently, it may be expected that by giving away part of the control over the processes of jobs creation and establishing appropriate incentives by conceding higher tax credits, the number of jobs created increases at the same time that the cost per job decreases. Nevertheless, in terms of equity, would it be better to give away part of the redistribution control? The role of the government is in part to carry on that redistribution, although by providing tax credits to a certain sector of the industry, it is certainly redistributing. Nonetheless, it is reasonable to assert that the redistribution and therefore the equity might be lower than a direct intervention. To compare the ease of political acceptance, a Prince analysis similar to the one performed for the status quo alternative was conducted. The resulting likelihood of this alternative turns out to be lower than the one obtained for the first option, about 55%. However, to increase the positive incentives is one alternative, but how about to increase the negative incentives for the segment of the industry competing with the ones creating green jobs, so that instead of incentivizing what we want to achieve, we disincentive what we want to avoid? This is also a feasible alternative. The state might impose 10% higher taxes on the segments of the industry competing with new sustainable technologies. This would discourage the adoption of unsustainable technologies, thereby fostering the adoption of sustainable ones. Nevertheless, risks have to be taken into account as different outcomes may arise, such as migration issues when people or companies decide to find another place where they can keep on working on the field they know better. These may have significant economic impacts that should be assessed. In terms of effectiveness, a 10% variation would translate into an important discouraging factor for anti-green technologies, and therefore a high effectiveness is expected. However, the efficiency of the measure would face a high uncertainty as well, as although in the long term the environmental benefits may be considerable, the economic costs in the short term, represented by the unperceived revenue from anti-green technologies, may outrun the benefits generated by this policy alternative. With regards to equity aspects, this alternative would be particularly aimed to affect negatively a very well-defined segment of the industry. This may pose equity problems even though the society as a whole would be the final beneficiary of the measure. In the short term, strong equity issues may arise. A Prince analysis was also conducted for these policy options, finding out that this is the option with the least likelihood, being it of about 45%. Finally, this is the summary of the three policy options analyzed. Comparatively, under the 3-4-E's frame, the results suggest that an increment of the current tax credit as a means to incentive the market of green technologies and foster the creation of green jobs should be a significant alternative to consider. On the other hand, to increase the tax for anti-green technologies, although effective, might pose serious threats to the economy of the region that should also be considered, and the political and social discomfort that it may cause could be an important factor. To concede part of the redistribution role that the government is doing itself to the market and therefore to the society as a whole, which is embodied by alternative number one, may offer significant benefits to the society by accelerating the creation of green jobs and also by making it more efficient.